Help build the cycle of strength. Give Ensure Gold with Strength Pro.
Para makalaban din tayo ng patas.
Hey guys, it's Junie, and I just want to give a quick heads up for this video. I am, in fact, sick right now, so if my voice is a bit shaky or even just scratchy, I'm so sorry. Also, my channel is so very close to hitting 30,000 subscribers, so make sure to sub and hit the bell icon to help me out. I'm considering doing either an art competition or a multi-animator project once I get there, so let's make this happen. Alrighty, that's enough panhandling for one video. Let's jump straight into the topic of today's video. Now, I've made tons of videos on TikTok drama, art drama, and just general discourse. That much is more than apparent, and the amount of times I've caught myself reusing the same few buzzwords makes me wonder, why has the term problematic taken such a rise in recent years? Its prominence seems like a normal thing nowadays. If a creator did something bad, they're problematic. And although the word itself has existed in the context of online spaces for ages now, it's become especially noted now. Problematic in itself is an umbrella term the way I see it, just an uncategorized label. When people don't care to look into the complexities of a situation and if actions conducted by a person are morally black or white, the creator is given a generalized term which separates them from the general populace of internet users. The need to separate a seemingly random person from everyone else by giving them an estranged label seems confusing at first, and that's a crude simplification of the situation itself. But here's some broad reasoning behind it. Quote, problematic people will always exist online, and as someone who deals with such people on a daily to weekly basis, getting cancelled does not guarantee a person's removal from the internet. Being cancelled is more of a mindset in a sense. To be cancelled is to be called out for severe and cross behaviors on a big enough platform to spark an audience reaction. And although a vast majority of cancelled creators never disappear or leave their platforms, most people feel a subconscious sense of self-security now that they've been called out and labeled as problematic. Knowing who's dangerous and thus knowing who to avoid brings people a sense of safety online. And even if you yourself may not feel this way, there is so much at play when it comes to this that you're likely a participant in this whether you know it or not. But that isn't a bad thing. For all intensive purposes, if a person does something irredeemable such as grooming, sexual assault, pedophilia, etc., they deserve to be viewed in a negative way due to the gravity of their actions. And if spreading news about people's actions by referring to them as problematic is what gets their actions pulled to light, then it's more than worth it. But this whole problematic craze has seemingly lost its edge. The line between genuine harmful behavior and blatant misinformation and lies has thinned so much that it's become hard to tell if someone is truly a quote problematic individual or not. And it's more than worrying. When I hear people getting called problematic, it's a wild mix between genuine worrying behavior or just being rude to someone. And dare I say, it's begun to water down the actions of people who have done genuine harm. The word itself is thrown around wildly in comment sections across every social media platform you can think of, to the point where even I'm desensitized to hearing it. And it's gotten to a point where instead of explaining or describing a person's actions when they asked what they did, people just tend to say they're problematic and call it a day. But what does that even mean without context? It seems like day after day more people get called out and even more people get called problematic. But why exactly is that? Well, there's a few reasons. First derives from the very title of this video. Problematic is the new edgy, and to an extent, this is actually alarmingly true. Being edgy for edginess sake is not a new concept online, and pairing aesthetics with said behavior has always been a thing. Take, for example, cute mascots such as Minhara-chan. The character itself is a commentary on the culture it depicts, and many people understand that. However, there is still a vast majority of people who use this character to be purposefully edgy. Random anime characters such as Yuno Gasai or Yanchan are also used in things like this, and the victimless crime of being edgy has been a thing since way before modern day internet culture. The act of being edgy is seen as somewhat cool to people, and thus people say and do edgy things that other people may find cringe or corny. And although it's a tad off-putting at times, it usually bears no harm to anyone. And as the years have gone by, especially within the past 2 years or so, a new kind of edginess, if you could even call it that, has taken the internet by storm. This, of course, being, and now count how many times I'm going to say this word in the video, problematic. And despite the fact that you or I may not fully understand its appeal, the act of being problematic, or even cancelled, has become a genuinely sought-after situation, weirdly enough. There is a lot at play on why being problematic is seen as fashionable to so many people recently. I mean, no one wants to be considered a truly bad person, but problemacy creates a gray area for doing bad things while not truly feeling the gravity of your situation. Young adults, and especially younger teens, seem to cling heavily to this idyllic view of being problematic. It's as if having that label makes you feel cooler. It's a hater-like mindset. People hate you for reasons you disagree with, and in its own rage-baity way, it's appealing. Think of it like when a 13-year-old tells their parents about how their aesthetic choices aren't a phase. It's kind of like that. It's an act of systematic rebellion. You do things that make people angry because it gives you attention as well as a sense of belonging. And since this behavior is so widely advertised in communities with younger members, such as Dandy's World, the TikTok art community, Roblox games, etc., it becomes almost a spectacle. And truly, I can't fully blame kids for falling into the habit of being a quote-unquote rage baiter or doing problematic things for attention. I obviously don't think it's good that such behaviors are being, 1, perceived, and 2, recreated by children. But it's fair to say that the 11-year-olds I see making stuff like rage baiter pro shipper posts don't fully understand what they're doing and how dangerous it is for them and the people who may see their content. There's also an underlying connection with aesthetics and the desire to be problematic and controversial because it's visually appealing. This sounds like a stretch at first until you look deeper into the visuals typically paired with purposefully problematic content. For starters, there's the whole aesthetic of being cute and problematic, characterized by ragebait posts made with characters such as K-Angel, Ame-chan, Ron-friend characters, or other characters from quote-unquote problematic content. Whether the source material is a satire on such culture or not, people still use the characters as essentially mascots for their behaviors, and it quickly falls into a loop of regurgitating ideals. It's a direct fetishization of one's harmful behavior, and this preaching to be both edgy and problematic and still justifiable so you're not truly a bad person is extremely dangerous. And I want to make this very clear, this is not fully glorification, it's fetishization. Well, truly, you can argue that it's both or either. It's no surprise that since I make videos on such people and behaviors that I land myself in some very, very unique company at times. And within problematic fandoms, fan bases, and people especially, I see a lot of direct encouragement to engage in such things. People have said being problematic feels cool, funny, interesting, or it's just something that they do for clout and attention. But where exactly did the people who are cancelled and deemed problematic go? Well, when less and less people want to interact with you on the daily due to your past actions, it becomes harder and harder to be integrated back into the, for lack of a better term, normal side of the internet, leading cancelled creators to have better luck hanging out with people like them, i.e. people seen as problematic typically find solace in friend groups that have gone through a similar degree of problemacy. This has the unfortunate side effect of causing people in recovery from such behaviors to fall back into their own roots because they are surrounded by people who still do those behaviors. The internet wants them to improve and get better, but they're so shunned that healthier people feel unnerved by being friends with them. And the only people they can truly turn to are people like them, which, you know, for people like pedophiles, zoophiles, necrophiles, etc., I do think that's more than valid. If they're actively engaging in such behavior and promoting it, they should be separated. But for younger teens who get into stuff like internet drama, sometimes recovering doesn't really become an option for them. It's really sad how a kid online can make a really shitty mistake or have a bad take and not have the support system to pull themselves back up, and more importantly, educate them that their behavior is both harmful to others and themselves as well. And I've seen it firsthand time and time again. Now, I'm not going to say who mentioned this to me out of respect for their own privacy, but a person I used to know once told me how they kept trying to leave the harmful communities they were in by making friends outside of them and eventually leaving the people that have been actively harming them. But every time they made friends with somebody outside of those groups, people would spam message them about how they couldn't be friends with them due to their past, which led them to be extremely lonely and shunned during their recovery, which, in my opinion, is just upsetting. This person was 12. They were in middle school with no IRL friends, and the only people online that would interact with them were genuinely dangerous people. They had no support system outside of that. Of course, if you become friends with somebody and choose to leave them after being informed of their past, that is perfectly fine. If you are not comfortable with a person, it is not your job to befriend them and cater to them. What I'm specifically talking about here is when people who actually want to support a person's recovery and be their friend get pressured into leaving the person they're actively helping because people are making them feel guilty for being friends with them. I'm purposefully big here, but this specific scenario mainly happens with children who get into TikTok drama and such. We seem to focus more on the children mirroring behaviors rather than the dangerous adults advertising such behaviors to them. One needs to be educated, the other reprimanded, and oh golly, this gets mixed up far too often than it should. Another thing I really want to bring up is how people fight for their lives to get random people labeled as problematic just so they have an excuse to hate them. The attempt to spread rumors, make up lies, falsify evidence / blindly believe false claims just to justify hating on an innocent person has become all too common. It's even more upsetting that this usually happens when people try to justify their dislike of a person, their art, or their personality. You don't want to seem like an asshole for just hating on a person, so you make it seem like they're worth hating on. A prime recent example of this is an artist known as Boyfish. Now, I already made an entire video on Boyfish a few weeks ago, but since then their entire situation has spiraled, and it's a direct example of what I just mentioned. People dislike their art, mannerisms, and way of animation. So in turn, people spread rumors about this 14-year-old having a quote boob fetish, being mean online, causing somebody a seizure, etc., and it's genuinely so strangulating watching this happen. What everyone else sees is an alleged problematic creator because that's just what everyone's saying, regardless of if it's true or not. Oh, they said this, oh, they did this, and it's all just word of mouth and completely untrue. People feel the need to push away this person and label them as problematic just because they are disliked by a vocal minority. Nowadays, you can even get cancelled for your art style. Having a widely disliked or quote uncomfortable art style equals people calling you gooner bait, saying you have a pro-shipper art style, saying you draw in a, and I quote, problematic way, as if any of this is true or means anything at all. The term problematic has become far too normalized, sought after, and thrown around, and so many people are being strained by this. And I've had my own share of this issue as well. There's still a handful of people who think I'm problematic on TikTok. And why is this exactly? Oh, well, it's because 2 months ago I accidentally followed somebody on TikTok in art fight without realizing that they were a questionable person and unfollowed them as soon as I found out less than a week later. Someone had made a TikTok about how I supported their actions, allegedly, even though I didn't even know what they did and obviously did not support them. And I was sent death threats, essay threats, and gore because of it. And to this day, people on TikTok still call me problematic over this, and it's insane how quickly shit about you spreads, even if it's untrue. Whether you or I or anyone for that matter agree or not, problematic behavior and terminology is taking over online, and it's truly terrifying. Hopefully this long-winded rant wasn't too confusing. I have a lot more points I wish I could make, and there are so many points that I've already made in previous videos. Internet users are only getting younger by the day, and influence, trends, and aesthetics all play into how problematic behavior is viewed, perceived, and indulged in. There's so much more at play here than a few edgy kids and concerning adults. Anyways, thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you have anything to add or speak your mind on, I encourage you to leave a comment. I'm actually quite interested in people's opinions on this topic, so if you do have any, please let me know. Also, consider joining my community's Discord server, as we're less than 50 joins away from hitting 2,000 members, and we host art events, game nights, art streams, etc. Once again, thank you all so much for watching, and as always, have a great day, my angels. Bye-bye. I just want to say thank you all so much for the recent fan art I've been getting between TikTok, Discord, and YouTube. I've been sent and tagged in so many lovely art pieces, and I'm so grateful to have so many talented artists in my community. If you want your fan art to be featured at the end of one of my videos, make sure to send it in the fan art channel of my Discord server or tag me on any of my socials, all of which can be accessed through the links on my straw page linked in the description below. Also, once again, I know I said this like 6 times, but I am so sick right now, so pardon my voice if it sounds weird or off or anything like that. Anyways, I think that's all. See you next time.
Clark, it's time.
Hey everyone, are you guys looking for a device that can keep up with your fast-paced life? One that is a tablet, a laptop, and an artist's canvas. Now get this, imagine a device that has a PC-like experience, has a keyboard, has a stylus, and has all of the apps that you would need. All for around 20,000 pesos? Interesting. This is the Huawei MatePad 11.5-inch 2025 edition. Hey team, welcome back. My name is Mike and this is the channel where we get updates on tech and lifestyle. Today we're going to find out why this tablet is the best PC
Scale. It's not only just in small communities and fandoms, but now pasted all over your For You page, begging you to click share so that your friends can see the insanity as well. And with so many wannabe problematic creators, comes a warranted worry and fear that this whole rage bait epidemic is spreading at a worse rate than you think. Let's get into it. For starters, I want to make it clear that calling your actions rage bait is not a get out of jail free card. I feel this needs to be mentioned because when doing research and scrolling down endless pages of problematic fandom AUs and rage bait slop content, I noticed a portion of people saying that it's just rage bait and that people are taking things too seriously. And sure, you can argue that the world is oh so sensitive and refuses to coddle problematic media, or even that people like me fall for the rage bait when we talk about this stuff. But at the end of the day, every action has a reaction, and saying something is rage bait does not make the content okay or just. I feel that's obvious, but it's important to reiterate that the media you consume affects you. Whether you agree with the whole fiction affects reality argument is completely besides the point. Because at the end of the day, if you continuously consume and create content surrounding harmful and problematic media and ideals, you are going to either suddenly or severely reflect the content you are fed. That's just how the brain works, and it works especially on younger teens and children, which happen to be the main perpetrators of what we'll be discussing today. Children and young teens will see content online that they perceive as interesting, edgy, cool, whatever, and they will regurgitate that content onto their own art and behaviors, because that's how developing brains function. Most parents are either not able to or simply don't monitor their kids' online intake, and if there's nobody online to explain why something is wrong, then people can be easily swept into dangerous communities and ideologies. Always remember that what you may perceive as an obvious fact may actually be a not-so-obvious possibility for someone younger than you. Of course, I'm not saying that everyone online doing rage bait or being weird is just an unknowing kid, but I'm definitely saying that there are people like that out there, and education over harassment is always important in situations like this. I believe this is an explanation for a person's actions, but as soon as that person understands the gravity of their actions and simply doesn't care, then that's obviously different. If you are conscious enough of your actions to know that you can use what is essentially an explanation as an excuse, then you know better. And it shouldn't be normalized to use mental health as an excuse to throw swastikas onto your Dandy's World animation. Mental health definitely plays into a person's actions, how susceptible they are to worsening their behaviors, and especially how weak they are when it comes to feeding into such things, but that doesn't necessarily excuse the behaviors themselves. And if a person doesn't make efforts to grow and change, then there's not much anyone can do. The problem is nowadays, with the extremist nature of TikTok cancel culture specifically, people may get labeled problematic 24/7, and you can never really tell if it's because they happen to follow a problematic or canceled creator, or if they're genuinely like a dangerous person. Entertainment over education is optimized, and younger creators deemed problematic are picking up cues that if they blame everything on their mental health and struggles, people will defend and sympathize with them, and even younger creators that do minimal things wrong or happen to make a minor mistake are being bashed, and it's really upsetting. This pattern of thinking is concerning because it's teaching more young teens that it's okay to do something when it's genuinely dangerous for both the creator and the audience viewing the content. Throwing dog whistles for pedophilia, Nazism, necrophilia, and harmful pro-contact paras onto animations for attention and clout is genuinely so dangerous for everyone involved. For one, the people often defending the creators are the people signaled in by the dog whistles or possible predators just looking for susceptible individuals. Either that or they're other children that don't understand the gravity of the situation or how serious it actually is. And the average viewer would usually catch onto the issues within the content itself and just report it. But of course, not everyone knows better, and TikTok is always going to be full of younger children and audience members. It's highly likely that what you may deem as a rage bait shitpost covered in map flags will be seen by a random kid online as cool or funny. And that kid may go down a rabbit hole of that content or possibly even post content with similar imagery. And you'd really think I'm stretching here, but that's just how easily harmful content is normalized and spread online, and it's much more common than you think. Just because you aren't viewing it directly or seeing it doesn't mean it's not happening. It's a lot more serious than you think, actually. Younger teens and children will always look up to the people they see online. That's just the way things are. And unsurprisingly, children will view rage bait content as edgy or cool, and
Character AI ay isang AI-powered app kung saan ka pwede makipag-interact at chat sa milyon-milyong character. Download mo na ang Character AI ng libre.
Okay ba tong generics? Ako na po ang bahalang mag-explain. It's made with the same ingredients as branded ones. Dumaan din to sa 5-step quality check. What about the price?
And, well, problematic is kind of like the new edgy, which definitely shouldn't be the case, but sadly kind of is. When I was doing a deep dive through the depths of TikTok for all these videos, I noticed that a lot of them have captions like this. People saying that it's a shitpost, it's a joke, don't take this seriously. Meanwhile, it's literally an animation of a random adult character thinking about assaulting a kid. At the end of the day, whether you or your friends think it's a funny, rage-baity joke, you still drew, animated, posted, and left videos like this up. You are technically part of the problem, and that's just the truth. And of course, these people can claim it's a satire on the topic all they want, but to be satire, you actually need to poke fun at the source material and give some sort of gravity on why it's bad. And making snappy, eye-catching animations just isn't a satire. It's glorified fan art, if not just that. The attention you want to get out of posting this content is still one of the reasons you made it in the first place and went as far as you did. At the end of the day, you are contributing to such severe harm and making jokes out of MAP, minor attracted persons, content, then yeah, you are pushing that content further. Call me crazy, call me a madman, but if you are making animations of a map/pedo character talking about how they love little girls while flashing images of a child character on screen, then yes, you are weird, and you are part of the problem, and that is weird. If you take discussions surrounding assault, necrophilia, domestic abuse, BDSM, and other explicit content and slapping it onto random cartoon characters to be quirky and edgy, then yeah, you're not funny. Glorifying topics such as pedophilia and indulging in pedophilic content is dangerous no matter the circumstances. Same thing goes for content revolving Nazism, necrophilia, SA. Turning paraphilias, kinks, and fetishes into quirky caricatures is glorification at the end of the day. Glorification is more than just like, oh wow, this character is so cool, look. If you make eye-catching and pleasing animations that a kid would watch, then yeah, these characters are going to seem cool and appetizing to kids. And of course, calling it rage bait or a joke doesn't negate its harmful and adverse effects. And I haven't seen many people saying this specifically, but you can make problematic OCs that aren't just pedophiles, abusers, and Nazis. You can make nuanced OCs with commentary on those subjects, or even make just a quote problematic OC that gambles or drinks, etc. There's so much else you could be doing with your time, I guess. Seriously, guys. It's also crazy important to mention that spreading awareness on why this content is bad is more than crucial. It may seem like obvious, but to most people, it surprisingly isn't. Commenting hate and death threats probably won't stop anyone pushing this rage-bait slop content because they feed off of negative attention. It's always best to block and report content like this directly to TikTok if you have the means to do so. And overall, just don't interact with content like this as a whole. The more you watch, the more it'll pop up everywhere. Rage baiting and being, quote, problematic has become a very genuine way of farming views and clout nowadays. And it's not surprising that kids are picking up on this too. I mean, when I was younger, I wanted to be a YouTuber so bad I probably would have done like anything to get there. It's no surprise that kids now view TikTokers in a similar way to how we viewed YouTubers. And communities such as Dandy's World, Forsaken, and other cutesy mascot horror-like games and content that have large fan bases consisting of kids, they're gonna take a liking to this stuff. What I'm trying to say is, it's no surprise that communities filled with impressionable people are going to harbor impressionable communities and content. Children and young teens with worse mental health are going to be edgy online, and I don't expect kids to be perfect when it comes to their actions. But with the amount of impressionable kids online, it's really concerning seeing in real time just how mangled learning is nowadays. For example, a kid in elementary school or middle school makes a stupid 9/11 joke because they heard some other people say it. That kid gets in trouble, but they usually get educated on why those kinds of jokes are, well, bad. However, because a lot of time for kids nowadays is sadly spent online, a kid online will see people making jokes about being a pedophile or necro, and will go and slap those flags on their OCs or other characters. But instead of people explaining why it's wrong, they just kind of get yelled at, and the kid retaliates by doing worse stuff solely for attention. And I definitely think that's one of the biggest reasons younger kids shouldn't be online, but me saying that isn't doing much in terms of actually stopping that, but you know. Hopefully this whole problematic epidemic thing calms down a bit and improves at least slightly, maybe at some point. Also, if you are an adult engaging in the pushing of this content and for some reason needed to hear this, this is your sign to pull yourself together. Genuinely. Thank you all for watching, and what did you guys think about this topic? Please let me know your thoughts in the comments. And always, if you enjoyed this video and want to see more like it in the future, consider subbing and hitting the bell icon to be notified when I post next. As well as consider joining our community's Discord server. We post game nights, whiteboards, and we're close to 2,000 members. Anyways, thank you all so much for watching, and as always, have a great day, my angels! Bye-bye!